May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be now and always acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. I was challenged a few weeks ago, why do we start every service with a confession? It's tough times, my challenger said. It's hard to feel good, and yet every Sunday we're forced to abase ourselves, confess our sin. Surely that lowers our self-esteem. And it's only a few minutes into that conversation before what seems very familiar, the person said to me, "You know the doctrine of original sin, it's nonsense. I don't believe in it." That doctrine, more quoted than understood, basically says things go wrong, always. And there's never a time when everyone or everything was okay. Now that sounds gloomy, and I wish I could have pursued it, but the conversation abruptly stopped then. And it was only 2 weeks later that I realized what I really wanted to say. I wanted to say, have you ever watched Line of Duty? Now, I'm not going to spoil it if you haven't seen the last episode of the last series, and this will make sense, I trust, if you've never watched any episode at all. But it is a wonderful series that throws up a mirror on myself and ourselves. So here are some characters which, even if you've never watched, I think you may recognize a bit in yourself or maybe in others. Take Ryan. Ryan comes from a criminal family and is part of a criminal gang. He's never known anything different. And I think we meet Ryan when he's first 8 years old, and he's a gopher for the crime gang. He's born into it. And as the series goes on, we have some sympathy. He's never known anything different until you start seeing him growing up and realize the greed that is in his soul actually makes him relish doing what is wrong. And suddenly you start to see a personal responsibility growing beyond the circumstances he was born into. Take Superintendent Hastings, comes from Northern Ireland, which is a way of saying there's trouble in the past, way back in the past. We never, even after 6 series, we never really know what it is. But this is the sort of person you may have met, where you know something's gone wrong way back, and the consequences in his life are simply unstoppable. 30 years later, he's still a tortured soul. Kate Fleming is a good person. You can see it very clearly, but she's a prime example of collateral damage. She is good, but she's divorced and she's lost contact with her kids. And again, you can start to feel sympathy until you recognize that actually her responsibility is that she overworks. An unbalanced life, although done for good reasons, often damages others. And Steve Arnott is clearly the hero. Young man who has had an accident and therefore become addicted to painkillers and to drink. But he's the hero because he is so passionate about rooting out corruption. But again, watch him closely, and you can start to see how that passion, good though it is, dominates his life and has all the potential of pushing him off the rails. We've seen that in church history in many times. Take, for example, the Spanish Inquisition. Good people there to root out evil, but did it with such a passion that they became damaged themselves. And it's the pace of drama, the pace of this wonderful drama, that prevents us asking the question, why are they bad? Surely there could have been a time when they didn't start to go down the wrong route. You can't ask that because you're just caught up in a narrative that says it's happening. Once things have begun to go awry, the key question is not why did it happen, it's how do you manage it? And that's what starts for me to echo for all of us. Not why, but how do we live with it? That's what original sin is essentially about, the doctrine. It's saying we're all caught up in frail and fallible circumstances. And partly also, though I've named 4 characters, it's not just about you and you and you going wrong. It's about all of us together. It's a story allegedly about police and corruption, but it could equally be about church and corruption. Institutions which we invent to hold on to what is good through many years and generations. Institutions also perpetuate mistakes. It's true in the police, it's true in church, it's true in schools, it's true throughout. And that sense of we're all in it together. Well, if nothing else, we feel that with climate change, human-caused climate change. It's not just you and you and you, it's us. But the key thing about this wonderful drama, it's not a drama about police corruption. Jed Mercurio, the author, is constantly laying those words in front of you and he's misdirecting you. It's not a story about police corruption, nor is the doctrine of original sin about human corruption. It is a story about the longing for redemption. Watch it. Those are the key dramatic moments when you see fallible people reaching out for the possibility that things can change and be put right once again. Look for those moments of grace. Towards the end of this last series, Ryan, that young person brought up into a life of crime, you can see saying to himself, dare I take another route? And Hastings, the superintendent, right at the end, facing his own demons and trying to begin the path to redemption. I was reminded in preparing this of my favourite cartoon in this book, which I've spoken about before, the boy, the mole, the fox, and the horse. What's the bravest thing you've ever said? Asked the boy. Help, said the horse. The doctrine of original sin is about being honest with ourselves. We might not wish to start here, but grace is given when we are honest. It's about saying we're caught up in networks of mistakes. We are not guilty of all of them, but we are responsible for what we do now. And it's not a doctrine about human corruption. It's a doctrine that says we are all longing for redemption. And so, to return to the beginning, my challenger said, why do we have a confession every Sunday? And the answer is because it's saying 3 things. Help, We're in this together. And dear God, we long for redemption in our line of duty. Amen.